history of the organ?
No, no one knows. Google it. My name is Abri Venter. I'm 57 years old. I come from the Karoo. I studied music at the University of the Free State at Koffsies. I've been a teacher all my life in Joburg for 23 years, 13 years in KZN, and now I'm back in Joburg for the past 2 years. You know, it's difficult to say exactly what inspired me. It was just something that was just there from the beginning. We always had a piano in our house, and I can even remember before school, I was just intrigued to fiddle on the piano. And then my parents told me, it seems like this little boertjie's got a knack for the instrument, and well, it just came natural. It was just there always. But there's a specific piece by Ludwig van Beethoven. It's the 5th piano concerto. This piano concerto's got 3 movements. So a concerto is something that it's an instrument that works with an orchestra. So if it's a flute concerto, there's a flute soloist, and then there is the orchestra. So this is a piano concerto. So the piano is the solo instrument, and the most beautiful part of music for me is in this Beethoven's 5th concerto. The second part is the chords are there, just the most beautiful I've ever heard in my life, and you know, I would like everybody to listen to that at least 1 million times in their life. I would say it would be amongst the 5 most difficult instruments to play. The reason being, if you have a solo instrument, you only read one line. So if you have like a flute, you read in the right hand clef, the G clef. Or if you play something like trombone, you always is only one clef, one line that you have to read. When you play piano, you've got a line that you read for your right hand and a line for your left hand. But when it gets to the organ, it gets a bit more difficult, because I don't know if you know, but we also use our feet to play. So we've got one line for the right hand, one line for the left hand, and one line for the feet. And sometimes those 3 gets a bit confused with each other. I think what makes the organ unique for me is the fact that it sort of represents a whole orchestra. You know, orchestra is usually 144 people playing different instruments, but in an organ you have one amazing instrument, and you've got all this, well, not all the sounds, but you've really got a lot of sounds that you get in the orchestra that you have in your one instrument. So it's no wonder they call the organ the king of instruments, and therefore I guess the organist is the king of musicians. Unfortunately, because traditionally the organ is just used for in churches. There are, however, quite a few halls, big concert halls that does have beautiful instruments. There are also school halls that's got instruments. So I think that's big, but it's mainly used in the church. So I think that the people think we can only use the organ in the church. Now that's a bit difficult. The organ is not that popular in churches anymore because of all the bands and stuff that now sort of infiltrates in the congregational singing. I think it's the duty of every organist to make his organ work for himself, work for the congregation, and work for the community. I think the fact that when you make music, you bring joy to people. And obviously that is one of the most wonderful things to do, is to make people happy. And if you play in an orchestra, it's like, for musicians, if you play like orchestra in a band, which you can do with the organ as well. If musicians play music together, it's like a lekker kuier. I think the highlight of my career was when I was in my 5th year and I was chosen as a soloist with the Free State Philharmonic Orchestra, where I played piano with the whole orchestra. I can remember I played a piece by a name called Bela Bartok. As I said, traditionally, the best, or the organ are mostly used these days as accompaniment for congregational singing. I think a good organist needs to lead the congregation while listening to them. We had a show at our church a month or 2 ago where we had a whole band up on the gallery with the organ. That was a drum kit and bass guitars and rhythm guitars, and I think the organ just sounded amazing with all those instruments. So definitely not. Jy het gesê jy gaan daai vraag vra nie. An organist must always be very, very aware of the fact that the organ is quite a loud instrument. And I can remember one day playing in a huge chapel in KZN. I forgot to close all the stops of the organ. I thought I closed them, but they were all open. So there was a big sound that could have come out. And at some stage, the minister said something about the voice of God spoken, or whatever, something about the voice of God. And I was moving around on my organ bench, and just as he said the voice of God, I hit with my feet, I hit those pedal notes, and it was this big, huge sound in the organ, in the chapel, like it was the voice of God. I had a big fright. Other things that can happen, that has happened unfortunately a few times with me, is again, if you have full organ and you play from the big hymn book, the hymnal. It's also a big thick book, and sometimes you can actually by accident drop that hymn book on the notes, and if you are on a full organ, and you drop that book on the notes, it is not a nice sound.